Hey, couples, lovers, parents, and women and men out here trying to find their person. Welcome back to another unfiltered episode of Hearts Wide from Heart's Distractions, where we uncork the tears, the truths, and the taboos of relationships and sip on all the messiness in between. Of course, I'm your host, Alicia Minor Gaines, licensed marriage and family therapist, relationship coach, and your favorite author, an emotionally raw mixologist who knows firsthand that love, like wine, sometimes needs to breathe before it makes sense again. Now, let me ask you something that might make you squirm in your Target mom sweats or your do not disturb dad hoodie. When's the last time you had good, real, earth shaking, give me my soul back sex since becoming a parent? I'm going to let that sit for a second. If that question makes you want to roll your eyes, cry, or just open a bottle of wine and say, "What sex life?" then, baby, this episode is for you. Because tonight we're getting deep, and I don't mean just emotionally. We're talking about sex after kids, how it disappears, why it disappears, and how the hell to bring it back. So, we're going to explore the hormonal and emotional cocktail that kills your drive, why parenting often leads to partner distancing, how generational myths about motherhood, masculinity, and real love sabotage our sex lives, how real life stories from couples who lost their spark was able to fight and reclaim their sex life. Plus, we're going to throw in some therapist approved tips, poetry, and yes, permission to be tired and still sexy. Now listen, I'm not here to give you another Pinterest style list of 10 ways to reignite passion that sounds cute, but don't apply to couples with kids who nap like landmines and only want their chicken nuggets cut a certain way. This is real talk for real couples. Straight, queer, married, dating, co-parenting, blended, tired as hell, or just trying to remember what it felt like to be touched and not for a diaper change. So, let's get into it, shall we? Let's talk about what happens to intimacy when the babies come, and whether your groove is buried, broken, or just waiting for you to come back to it. Because it's not gone, I promise you. It's just, a little dusty under the pile of laundry and PTA meetings. So get your glass, pour that wine or tea or whatever favorite beverage you have, and let's get into it, shall we? So, can I be honest with y'all? Before kids, sex felt like a given. You had energy, privacy, spontaneity. You didn't have a baby monitor in one ear and a breast pump in the other. You couldn't make love without being interrupted by, "Mom, he's looking at me." You used to rip each other's clothes off after dinner. Now, you're lucky if you both fall asleep during the same episode of whatever Netflix show you've restarted 3 times this week. And it's not just you. Let me hit you with some hard truths backed by research, shall we? A 2023 study from the Journal of Family Psychology found that 84% of parents report a significant drop in sexual frequency and desire in the first 12 months after having a baby. That's not a slight dip, y'all. That's a cliff dive, if you ask me. Even more telling, 57% of couples said they felt emotionally distant from their partner within the first year of parenting. Not just tired, not just busy, but emotionally disconnected. And let's not talk about what postpartum hormones do to your body and your libido. Ever heard of prolactin? That's the hormone responsible for milk production and birthing parents. Beautiful, necessary, and a known libido killer. And cortisol from lack of sleep and stress? Well, that's a recipe for a sexual burnout. And don't worry, fellas, I didn't forget about y'all. You might not have birthed the baby, but let's be real. Your sex life did not make it out of that delivery room alive either. You're navigating a crying baby, a partner recovering from birth, or managing a newborn schedule, and your needs start taking a back seat. Resentment creeps in, silent frustrations grow, and guess what? Nobody's talking about it. Let me paint a picture of what this looks like in real life, shall we? We gonna call this couple Mariah and Tony. Mariah and Tony had what they called Freaky Fridays before their twin boys were born. Like clockwork, every Friday night was their time. Candles, playlists, you name it. But once the twins arrived, Friday nights turned into cleaning up blowouts, warming bottles, and catching 2 hours of sleep before the next meltdown. At their 1-year anniversary of parenting, Tony turned to Mariah and said, "I miss you." And she responded, "I miss me too." She wasn't just physically exhausted. She didn't feel like herself. She had stretch marks, leaky boobs, spit up stained shirts, and a partner who didn't know how to reach her anymore. They hadn't had sex in over 4 months, and truth be told, neither had the energy to fight about it. And listen, that's not uncommon. The physical recovery, the hormonal upheaval, and the loss of identity, it's not just about sex being on the back burner. The whole damn stove is turned off, y'all. And when you add in parenting stress, one parent might feel rejected or invisible. The other might feel like their body isn't theirs anymore. And both might avoid intimacy to avoid rejection or pressure. It's a silent erosion, and trust me, it's real. But let me be clear. This doesn't mean the love is gone, because I know some couples worry about that. It means your capacity is drained. Your reserves are tapped, and the connection has been overshadowed by survival. And that's okay. What we're not going to do in this episode is shame anybody for what their body can't do or how their desire has shifted. Instead, we're going to name it, normalize it, and slowly start dusting off the parts of ourselves that deserve pleasure too. Because guess what? Parents deserve pleasure. They deserve passion, and not just in theory, in real, messy, post-bedroom, maybe the baby wakes up, but we tried anyway kinds of ways. So let's keep it going, shall we? Because underneath the intimacy disappearing act is often a performance we're tired of playing. All right, now that we've peeled back the first layer of this no sex after kids lasagna, let's dig into the spicy sauce underneath, shall we? You know, gender roles, shame, and the silent rules we inherited about who's allowed to feel sexy and when. Let me ask y'all a wild question here. Who told us that moms have to stop being sexual the minute the baby bump shows up? Who decided that fathers are emotionally numb utility providers, not lovers or soft-hearted nurturers? And why do we still whisper about sex in the parenthood era like it's a dirty secret in the suburbs? Because here's the thing. Parenting doesn't make you less human. It makes you more human. Messier, sure. More tired, of course. But less deserving of affection? Absolutely not. From a clinical perspective, many of these shame cycles are deeply rooted in what we call cultural sexual scripting. It's this idea that we're assigned unconscious roles around sex based on our gender, upbringing, and family system. These scripts tell us what's acceptable and what's not. Here's what some of those scripts sound like. Mothers should be selfless, nurturing, and not think about sex. Fathers should be strong, stoic, and always want sex, even if they're emotionally neglected. Queer parents, let's pretend they don't have sex at all unless we can over-sexualize it for entertainment. Does that sound familiar? Yeah, that's the kind of social garbage we're taking to the curb today. But before I do, can I share a mini poem with y'all? We're going to call it The Quiet. I learned to quiet my hunger because it sounded selfish. I whispered my needs between bottle feeds and burp coughs and postpartum fog. But I am more than milk. I am still flamed, and I deserve to burn without guilt. I know, snaps, y'all, finger snaps. But let's be real. This shame is generational. Your grandmother probably didn't talk about sex. Your mother might have joked about it, but didn't really open up. And now here you are, scared to tell your partner you miss being kissed, like you're still wanted, not just needed. And for my fellas and mask presenting partners, you might have been raised to think emotional vulnerability is weak. That if your partner isn't initiating sex, it's just something to man up and deal with. You might even carry silent resentment you don't know how to voice. Can I break this down in a real life story for y'all? We're going to call this couple Devin and Bryce. Devin and Bryce had been married for 4 years before adopting their daughter, Layla. We're going to call her Layla. They were known for having that spark in their friend group, passionate, playful, always touching. But after the adoption, things changed. Bryce, the non-biological parent, started to feel invisible. He didn't want to pressure Devin, who was overwhelmed, learning to parent a newborn and healing from post-adoption depression. I bet some of y'all didn't know that was a thing. So instead of speaking up, Bryce started withdrawing. No more cuddles on the couch, no more flirting. He convinced himself, she's too tired and I shouldn't be thinking about sex right now. What neither of them realized is that they were each playing the part they thought they were supposed to play, while both slowly disappearing inside. Devin told me in a session, I thought I had to be a perfect mom before I could be a present lover again. And Bryce said, I thought asking for connection made me selfish. Y'all, the shame runs deep, but it can't survive truth. We need to rewrite the narrative because when intimacy is rooted in pressure and performance, nobody wins. But when it's rooted in honesty, mutual care, and space to evolve, even if that evolution is slow, it becomes sacred again. So let's unpack what happens next when the silence grows too loud to ignore and rejection becomes routine. Let's talk resentment and how it kills connection quicker than sleep deprivation ever could. So here's the part of the conversation where things get heavy, but necessary, I promise you. Resentment is the intimacy killer that sneaks in wearing sweatpants and good intentions. It doesn't scream, it simmers slowly over weeks, months, and even years. And rejection, that's the sharp twin. It builds up like scar tissue in the bedroom each time you try to reach for your partner and they pull away. Each time you hint at needing closeness and get met with a sigh or a scroll. That little sting becomes a silent grudge. And eventually, you stop reaching. Well, according to the American Association for Marriage and Family Therapy, 68% of couples who report a lack of physical intimacy also report high levels of resentment, loneliness, or dissatisfaction in the relationship, often long before the sex stopped. Let me say this another way. The sex didn't die because the love died. It died because the communication stopped, the vulnerability faded, and the unspoken pain got louder than the moans ever did. All right, I'm going to give y'all another short story. We're going to call this couple Jamila and Andre. So Jamila used to initiate sex with Andre all the time. Playful texts, lingerie, even hotel date nights. But after baby number 2, I said baby number 2, her body changed, and so did her self-esteem. Andre, trying to give her space, stopped initiating too. He didn't want to make her feel pressured. But 6 months had passed, then a year, and guess what? No sex, no conversation, just late night dishes and toddler tantrums. But then one day, Andre blurted out, I miss touching you without feeling like I'm bothering you. And Jamila told him, I've been waiting for you to still want me, the new me. That moment, that crack in the wall they both built, That's where the healing started. Because here's what I need you to know and understand. Rejection doesn't always come from dislike. It often comes from trauma, exhaustion, shame, or unspoken needs. But when we don't talk about it, we assume the worst. And that's where the emotional erosion begins. Can I share another short poem with y'all? We're going to call this one Buried in the Crib Sheets. I know y'all down there cracking up about these titles. But we talking about this today, y'all. I promise you. You reached for me, but I was already gone. Buried beneath sleep schedules, breast pads, bottles, and the guilt of not being enough. You touched me like duty, not like desire, and I mourned the girl who used to beg for your hands. Finger snaps, y'all. But resentment doesn't always look like yelling or cheating. Sometimes it looks like folding laundry in silence, or scrolling through your phone while your partner brushes their teeth, feeling lonelier than you'll admit. But you don't have to stay there. You don't have to settle for roommate energy when what you really want is lover energy. What you need is to rebuild emotional safety. Because when the emotional walls come down, then desire has a place to rise again. All right, so we're going to be talking about what sex looks like now. Not what it was, not what it used to be, but what it can be in this new version of life and love. All right, stick with me here, y'all. Okay, so let's cut the Pinterest perfect nonsense and talk real life, shall we? What does sex actually look like now? Because it ain't candlelit yoga stretches and matching lingerie every Wednesday. Sometimes it's close the bedroom door and pray the baby monitor doesn't blink. Sometimes it's we got 12 minutes before we pass out, let's go. And sometimes it's just hugging in the dark and whispering, I miss us. And you know what? That's still intimacy. Sex isn't just about fireworks and orgasms. Sometimes it's about the spark you're trying to protect in a storm. Let's talk about this lie real quick, can we? We've been sold this idea that scheduled sex is boring and unsexy. But here's what I tell my clients. If you can schedule doctor's appointments, meetings, and soccer practice, why not schedule something for your own damn joy? Scheduling sex doesn't mean you're broken. It means you're intentional. You're saying, this matters. We matter. And yes, maybe you pencil it in. But when it happens, you still get butterflies. Because intimacy isn't about surprise. It's about presence. So can I bring this home for y'all? In a short story, we're going to call this couple Ashley and Carmen. Ashley and Carmen, two moms raising 3 kids, started scheduling intimacy after realizing a month had passed without touching. They call it Power Hour, once a week. Friday nights. Sometimes it's full-blown sex. Sometimes it's just cuddling, massaging, or sharing a fantasy. And trust me, it worked for them. Ashley said, it gave us permission to be lovers again, not just co-parents. See, you don't need spontaneity. You need space, emotional, physical, and mental. Whether you haven't had sex in weeks, months, or even years, here are a few ways to start where you are. Sensual touch. No pressure for sex, just touch. Back rubs, holding hands, hair playing. Non-penetrative intimacy, kissing, skin on skin cuddling, showering together. Some fantasy talks. What would feel exciting? What's missing? What turns you on now versus before kids? And of course, for some of y'all, masturbation with communication. Normalize solo pleasure and talk about it without shame. And let me say this for the people in the back. Masturbation is not cheating, neglect, or rejection. Sometimes it's just the body saying, I need a moment to reconnect with me. Especially for new parents. It could be a tool, not a betrayal. Your body has changed. Your mind has changed. Your relationship has changed. So your sex life needs to change too. Trying to get back to the old sex is like trying to fit into pre-baby jeans that shrunk in the dryer of parenthood and stress. What if instead of asking, how do we get back what we had, you ask, what do we want our intimacy to look like now with this new version of us? You might be surprised how much magic exists in the now if you let go of the old script. So, I want y'all to stick with me because we're going to be talking about something a lot of couples skip over in this conversation, which is the silent grief of losing that spark. The mourning that shows up in the middle of the night or the middle of an argument. Because yes, it's okay to grieve the sex you used to have, but it's also okay to fall in love with what's possible now. So let's talk about that grief, shall we? Sometimes losing that deep, passionate, we used to crave each other kind of sex feels like a death, not of your relationship, but of a version of yourself you love. And no one prepares you for that grief because no one talks about it. Can I share a quote from a client with y'all? We gonna call her Michelle. And Michelle had 3 kids, y'all. And she said to me during a session, I know I'm supposed to be grateful. I have healthy kids, a supportive husband, but I feel like a piece of me disappeared when I became a mom. I used to feel sexy, desired, alive. Now I just feel functional. Whew. Let me tell you something right now. You are not selfish for feeling that. You are not broken. You are human and layered and sacred. And you're allowed to grieve the woman or man or version of yourself you used to be. Grief isn't just about death. It's about any loss that disrupts your identity. And for many couples, sex wasn't just about pleasure. It was about connection, safety, and identity. So when it disappears, you're not just missing orgasms, you're missing feeling seen, wanted, and emotionally alive. This grief can manifest in subtle ways, such as pulling away emotionally, irritability or sudden mood swings, fantasizing about a life before kids, emotional affairs, and resentment toward your partner or even your child. So I'm going to share another story with y'all. We're going to call this couple Jerome and Anna. Jerome and Anna had been married for 10 years with 2 kids under 7, y'all. Jerome shared during a retreat, I miss her. I miss how she used to light up when I walked in. I miss her touch. I know she's still in there, but I don't know how to reach her. Anna cried, not because he was wrong, but because he was right. She said, I miss me too. I miss the woman who wanted to be touched, not just needed for everything. That's the grief we're talking about here. And it doesn't mean you don't love your partner. It means you're both carrying a silent loss no one helped you name. I'm going to share a poem with y'all. We're going to call this I Miss Me. Before the baby, I wore lace. Now I wear guilt. I walk into rooms and forget why. I stare in mirrors, searching for the girl who once moaned without apology. So I ask you, how do we honor this grief without letting it consume us? I'm going to give y'all some steps. First, name the loss out loud. Say it to your partner. I miss our sex life. I miss feeling desired. I miss you. Write a letter to the past you. Thank them. Let them go and invite the new version of you to take up space. Make a grief date. Choose a night where you don't focus on fixing anything. Just sit together, cry, hold hands, and let the grief move through. And finally, start small rituals of reconnection. A 30-second kiss, a 2-minute hug, a shared playlist, a weekly walk without the kids. Intimacy doesn't come back all at once, but like grief, healing happens in the micro moments, the vulnerable ones, the ones where you both decide we are still worth this. So, what happens when you still want to feel close, but you don't want sex? How do we relearn how to touch each other with kindness, not obligation? So let's talk about something that's been overlooked, ignored, and absolutely necessary in long term relationships and marriages, especially after kids. Touch that isn't transactional. Because when you've gone weeks or even months without intimacy, every single touch can start to feel, loaded. A hand on your thigh might mean I want sex. A back rub at bedtime might feel like a prelude, not a gift. A quick kiss in the kitchen, that might feel rushed or routine. And that's when couples start to avoid each other. Not because they don't want connection, but because they're tired of feeling like every hug is a coupon for penetration later. All right, let's shift that. I think that got a little too heavy for y'all. There's a whole body of research on non-sexual physical affection and how powerful it is in bonding couples emotionally. In fact, the Gottman Institute found that couples who regularly engage in non-sexual touch, like hand-holding, cuddling, or gentle face touches, report higher levels of relationship satisfaction and emotional safety, even if their sex frequency is low. Yep, I need y'all to hear that. Because you don't have to have sex all the time to feel close, but you do have to feel safe in each other's presence and arms. Let's get practical. Here are some ways to reintroduce touch that says, I love you, without saying, let's do it, or let's get it on. Holding hands while watching TV, rubbing lotion on each other's hands or feet or back after the kids go to bed, spooning in bed, even if nothing more happens, running your fingers through your partner's hair, a hug that lasts 20 seconds, but I like 2-minute hugs because yes, science says this releases oxytocin. Slow dancing in the kitchen, even for 30 seconds, and placing your hand on their back during dinner or while walking past them. Let me break this down and my couple that I'm going to call Malik and Jordan. Malik and Jordan was married for 8 years. They came to me for relationship coaching feeling disconnected. They said they hadn't had sex in 4 months and barely touched each other anymore. Malik confessed, every time I reached for Jordan, it felt like they recoiled, so I stopped. And Jordan said to Malik, every time you touched me, I felt pressure. I felt like I had to perform, and I wasn't there yet. So I gave them an assignment, 1 20-second hug every day. No exceptions, no sex, just presence with one another. Malik told me later that hug changed everything for them and that he felt Jordan melt in his arms again. And he said, I remembered the rhythm of their breath. And for once, I didn't feel rejected. I felt love. Jordan said, it reminded me that I'm still wanted, that I still want closeness. And I just needed it without pressure. Sometimes the bridge back to intimacy isn't about sex. It's about safety. And safety starts with consistent, non-demanding affection. So if you've been dodging your partner's touch because you're tired or overwhelmed or just not in the mood, that's okay. But what if you redefine touch just for now? What if you made space for affection that isn't leading anywhere but means everything? Well, y'all know I'm about to bring up some things that's very controversial, but real. We're going to talk about the we need a break myth. Do breaks help reignite intimacy, or are they just another form of avoidance? Hold on to that question because we about to go there. I promise you. Because we about to stir the pot here. And I want y'all to raise your hand on this one. If yes, even if you're in the car or pushing a stroller, if you've ever thought maybe we just need a break, some space, time apart to figure this thing out. It's a common thought when intimacy dies down, communication breaks, and you feel like you're just managing a household together. I promise you. But here's the real question. Do breaks actually help intimacy, or do they just put a pause on the inevitable? Let's unpack the break myth and how it can either help you reset or cause more emotional drift. Studies from the Journal of Marriage and Family Therapy show that only about 20% of couples who take a temporary break report increased satisfaction afterward. Meanwhile, 42% say the break led to further detachment or separation. Why? Because most breaks aren't structured. They're emotional explosions. One person says, I need space, while the other says, fine, leave. And then silence, confusion, no tools, no plan, no healing. Can I give y'all an example of this? Okay. We're going to call this couple Rachel and Michael. Rachel and Michael had 3 kids, a mortgage, and 0 sex for almost 18 months, y'all. They decided on a break. Rachel moved in with her sister for a few weeks. At first, it felt like relief because there was no arguing, no tension, but then the silence became unbearable. Michael said, I realized we've never even talked about why we lost each other. We just kept blaming parenting, work, or money. Rachel said, I was waiting for him to come get me, to say I miss you, but he never did. And it turns out, both of them thought they were unwanted. And by the time they came back together, the emotional gap was wider than the physical one. So, if you're considering a break, make sure it's a healing one, not a disappearing act. And here's how you can make that work. First, set clear intentions, such as, we're taking time to work on ourselves, not to threaten each other with separation. Then, have defined boundaries, such as, are you dating others? Are you checking in? And who's managing the kids? Then get support during the break. Relationship coaching, therapy, journaling, not just Netflix and ghosting your partner. And then, finally, agree on reconnection goals. Set a time to regroup. Talk about what you're learning, not just what's wrong. Sometimes space is needed, especially when things feel toxic or emotionally unsafe. But taking a break without a plan is like leaving the house during a fire without calling the fire department. You might be away from the flames, but the damage keeps spreading. And listen, this isn't about judgment. Some couples do heal through space, but most of the healing happens not in the space apart, but in what they do with that space. So before you say we need a break, ask instead, do we need a break, or do we need new tools to reconnect while staying close? Because sometimes the most healing thing isn't leaving the house. It's sitting across the couch, putting down the phones, and saying, I miss you. Can we try again, even just a little? All right, how do we go from roommates to lovers again? Let's talk about dating your partner all over again, and even when the kids are crawling all over you. Can we do that? How many of y'all are sitting in the same house with your partner every single day, passing each other like co-workers, not lovers? If you found yourself saying, we're great as a parenting team, but something's missing, well, you might be stuck in what I call roommate mode. And listen, no shame. It happens to the best of us. You're managing bills, kids, dishes, diapers, school drop-offs, therapy, relationship coaching, appointments, in-laws, and trying to keep your own sanity together. But here's the catch. Roommate mode kills romance because you forget to flirt with the person you built all this chaos with. So the question is, how do we become lovers again without needing to escape to a 5-star resort or wait until the kids graduate? You don't need grand gestures. You need micro intimacy moments. Little sparks, tiny touches, and emotional winks that say, I still see you. And here's how that can look. Text your partner in the middle of the day just to say, "You looked fine as hell this morning." Yeah, I like that one. Leave a sticky note on their toothbrush with a flirty compliment. Make sure that note's at the bottom, not on the bristles, okay? Recreate your first date at home with takeout and the same music. Touch them when you pass by, not to lead to sex, but just to say, "I'm here." And sit next to them during TV time instead of opposite ends of the couch. Can I give y'all a quick story of how Nina and Daniel took 5 minutes to reconnect with each other every day, but they made it a rule? Okay. Nina and Daniel had 3 kids, a loud household, and 0 alone time. But they made one small commitment that changed everything. They took 5 minutes a day, no distractions, no phones, just them. Sometimes it was a walk outside, sometimes a check-in while the kids napped, sometimes it turned into making out in the laundry room. Hey, get it how you live, y'all. Just saying. Nina said to me, "Those 5 minutes reminded me of why we chose each other." And Daniel said, "It reminded him that she's not just my co-parent. She's my person." Amazing, right? Well, let me tell you something that might sound radical. You're allowed to flirt with your partner like you just met, even if y'all been together 15 years and share a mortgage. Because flirting isn't about being young and carefree. It's about reminding your partner that you still choose them on purpose. So send that risky text. Play footsie under the table. Bite your lip when they walk in the room like you used to. Recreate the energy, not the era. So if you've been stuck in the roommate loop, clocking in and out of parenting shifts, just know you don't need a full weekend getaway. You need 10 seconds of eye contact. You need one honest moment, one kiss that lingers just a beat too long. That's how we go from just managing life to living it together. Okay, we're going to talk about some tools nobody wants to admit they need: therapy, relationship coaching, sex toys, and taboo conversations. Because sometimes you need more than love. You need a little courage and creativity too. Oops, I'm sorry. Did somebody just clutch their pearls just now? Yes, you heard me right. I said therapy, relationship coaching, sex toys, and taboo conversations. Because if you're serious about getting your groove back after kids, it's time to put shame in the back seat and bring honesty and exploration to the front. Because real talk, sometimes love isn't enough. You can adore each other and still be disconnected. You can be loyal and still unsatisfied. You can love your life and still want more in the bedroom. So let me start here. Couples therapy and relationship coaching isn't just for couples in crisis. It's for couples who want to rebuild emotional safety, understand each other's attachment styles, navigate resentment or postpartum trauma, reignite intimacy with guidance, not guesswork, wanting to put new skills that they've learned even from therapy into action through relationship coaching. Therapy and relationship coaching is not admitting failure. It's investing in growth, healing, and tools you were never taught and never learned how to put into action. We're going to talk about a couple. We're going to call them Armand and Tasia. Armand and Tasia came to therapy feeling stuck in a "we've tried everything" rut. 2 toddlers, full-time jobs, and a sex life they described as ghosted. In session, they confessed they'd been afraid to talk about trying toys. Why? Because they thought it would replace real intimacy. But once we unpacked that shame, Tasia said, "I realized it's not about replacing, it's about enhancing." And Armand said, "And it gives me a chance to learn what she actually enjoys." Y'all, sometimes the things you're afraid to say out loud is the exact thing that will save your sex life. Can I break this down for y'all? Vibrators don't replace you. They enhance pleasure. Lube is not a sign of failure. It's a celebration of comfort. Role-playing isn't weird. It's theater for your libido. And blindfolds, massage oil, and mutual masturbation, all valid forms of intimacy. And for my LGBTQ plus couples, navigating toys and tools might already be part of your normal, but let this be your reminder that your pleasure matters too, and your needs deserve space, safety, and creative exploration. Let me hit you with this truth. If you can't talk about what you want, how can your partner give it to you? Fantasy isn't about being unfaithful. It's about tapping into your imagination to unlock new layers of desire. So try this. If we could have sex anywhere in the world, no kids, no limits, where would it be? What have you always been curious to try but never said out loud? And what's something small that makes you feel sexy lately? Asking these questions helps you to start slow. Start silly, but just getting started, right? So whether you're pulling out the therapy workbook, picking up a vibrator, or sitting across from your partner asking, can we talk about what we both want? You're not broken. You're brave. Because getting your groove back isn't about going backwards. It's about evolving. And evolution takes courage, curiosity, and a willingness to be seen again. All right, to wrap this up, let's talk about what this all means for your kids. Because modeling love and healthy intimacy isn't just about what happens behind closed doors. It's about the emotional legacy you're creating for them. I'm about to speak some truth to y'all. So here's a question that might catch you off guard. What are your kids learning about love from watching you? Now, don't panic. I'm not saying your toddler saw you sneaking a quickie in the laundry room and is now scared for life. But seriously, kids are always watching. And they're learning about love, connection, affection, and emotional availability by how we show up in our own relationships. That includes how we fight, how we make up, and yes, how we love. As a marriage and family therapist, I've worked with so many adult clients whose current intimacy struggles go back to what they saw or didn't see growing up. You know the vibes. My parents never touched each other. They slept in separate rooms and just stayed together for the kids. And I never saw them hold hands or say, I love you. Does that sound familiar? Now, as parents, we often want to protect our kids from adult topics. And that's fair. But protecting doesn't mean pretending love doesn't exist beyond caregiving. Here's what emotional healthy modeling can include. Hugging or kissing your partner in front of your kids. Talking about the importance of spending time as a couple. Setting boundaries like, Mom and Dad are having quiet time. Can you give us 10 minutes? And letting them see affection, laughter, even healthy disagreement and repair. Because intimacy isn't just about sex. It's about connection, communication, safety, and joy. When kids see love that's alive, not just functioning, they learn that healthy relationships are worth investing in. Y'all know I'm going to give y'all a story on this one, right? Okay. We're going to call this couple Priya and Dominique. Priya and Dominique made it a point to model their love, even with 3 kids under 10. They had family dinner together, but also made a big deal about their grown-up date nights, y'all. Their 7-year-old once asked, why do you dress up just to stay in the house? And Dominique said, because your mama deserves to feel beautiful, even if it's just for me. Woo! That child, I tell y'all, will grow up knowing love is about effort, about intention, and about not forgetting each other in the chaos. I'm going to give y'all a cute little poem. We're going to call it What My Children Will Learn. My children will know that kisses are not chores, that affection is not a reward, and that love is not a whisper behind closed doors. It's laughter in the hallway, a hand held after hard days, and a partnership that still dances when no one else is watching. Finger snaps, y'all. So no, you don't have to have deep sex talks with your 5-year-old. But yes, you can teach them that intimacy is a gift, that love is worth prioritizing, that joy doesn't have to disappear after responsibility walks in the room. Because reclaiming intimacy after kids isn't just about getting your groove back. It's about showing the next generation that love evolves, adapts, and still deserves to be celebrated. And that's a legacy worth leaving. Whew, y'all, what a ride this episode has been. I know we've unpacked it all: the lost sex drive, the resentment, the roommate syndrome, the grief, the toys, the therapy, the slow climb back to closeness. And you know what? If you're listening to this and thinking, that's me, that's us, we've lost our rhythm, then I want to tell you something real. You're not broken. Your relationship is not dead. Your intimacy is not gone. It's just waiting under the routine, under the stress, under the silent hurts to be invited back in. One gentle touch at a time, one awkward but honest conversation, one, hey, I miss us. Because love after kids, it's not just possible, it's powerful. It's rooted, mature, unpredictable, and so damn worth fighting for. So let this be your sign to flirt again, to talk again, to try again. Let this be your permission slip to want more and to work for it. If this episode spoke to you, I want you to subscribe to my YouTube channel at Hearts Wine from Hearts Distractions. I want you to be able to go to my website, www.aliciasdistractions.com, to find out more about what I have to offer when it comes to coaching, as well as being able to tap into all of my episodes and some resources for yourselves. Don't forget to pick up a copy of my poetry book, Distractions of the Heart, available on Amazon. And of course, you can follow me on Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook for, of course, some inspiration, couples challenges, spicy quotes, some humor, and new drops of new episodes. So let's raise a glass, not just to getting your groove back, but to reinventing the kind of intimacy that grows with you. The kind that dances through the diapers, laughs in the chaos, and whispers, "You're still mine," even when the baby monitor is blinking. Because sex after kids isn't just about going back to who you were. It's about falling in love with who you're becoming. You can be a parent and a partner, a nurturer and a freak, a caregiver and a whole damn craving. Your groove isn't gone, baby. It's just needed. It just needed a nudge and a little wine too. So clink your glasses together and say what? Cheers.